So certain things I do to stay efficient when putting on color or foiling or haircuts or taking my cape back when I put it in the laundry and grabbing another one as I come out. So constantly doing something as you're doing something. Like I was trained in a restaurant, and back when I was trained in a restaurant, you still had cigarette ashtrays on tables. And the rule of thumb was always you never walk past a table without having both your hands full. So it's kind of just stuck with me through the salon industry also. Like if I'm walking through, of course I have my dirty towel in my hand, I'm gonna put it in the back. And I'm gonna grab a cape on my way back. So then I'm not going back because my client's already sitting here to grab her cape. So it's just always like being aware of what your next step, we can turn that off now. Just being aware throughout your day of what your next step is really important, so then you don't feel lost. Just like being aware of what your next step on your foil is going to be, so you're prepared, so you're always getting ready for that next step as you're doing the step you're on. Same with your color, you know, and knowing like, okay, so I'm 5 minutes behind, but I still have to tone, and just keeping an eye on, like, you can look at the color before you pull your foil and know what you're gonna tone or about, or just different steps along the way because you're aware of it. So, you know, like maybe you leave a little bit more of a subsection in between because your client was late, and that's just, they still are getting their foil, they're still getting the result. They just might not have quite as many as they were hoping to have. But you don't have to say you can't do any of it, you can still do some. So just always being aware, just like having a layout on the head is extremely helpful. Where you're going to start, where you're going to stop, why, and knowing why you do it. So if you don't know the why, then it's really hard to ever put a layout, a plan, and like lay out a plan, if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing. So that really explained, like she's pivoting off her point, so that's where the boldest piece is. Like Jordan was saying, we were always taught to start in this one spot, which makes no sense, where they used to tell us to start. Another thing about being efficient is, especially with bleach, you really have a 15 to 20 minute window, and if you are still applying bleach after 20 minutes and you haven't remixed, you're never going to catch up. That last foil is never going to catch up to the front, so you should be remixing. So that's part of why being efficient and timely is so important, and that's also why using small sections, fine sections is so important, especially with bleach. If you're taking larger sections because you're in a hurry, then the top is getting processed and the underneath is being processed, and in the middle is never going to be even, and then you're toning and you're trying to tone evenly, and you can't because you didn't lift evenly. So that's where it also comes down to being efficient, is making sure to be consistent in your sectioning size, so that you're not trying to tone a mistake that could have been avoided by just doing it correctly to start with. So with color, one of the things I do for sectioning is, I never put more than a quarter to a half inch on my brush, and I like it to be extremely even on both sides. I'm super picky about having a messy brush, so this is really thick because it's conditioner. So I like to keep my section a little, I like to create a little tension, and so when I have color on my brush, there's color on both sides pretty evenly, and when you kind of think about what your grow outline is usually going to be, 1/2 inch to 1 inch, so you never put more color than that on here, because then you're never going to go past that. Like if I were just to lay it on, I'm never going to go past. So when I'm putting it on, as I set it on the base, I'm flicking it out, and then I twirl and flick it out, and then it bunches up there. You can see there's extra product. So I'm using that then to go down and twirl my brush. And that's my whole section. And before I let go of this tension, I'm already pulling this out, and as I'm flipping, I'm reapplying, and I'm doing the same thing, and then I twirl and I comb down. And my sectioning is always see-through, because then I always have color from the application before, and this is also holding my section out, and before I drop it, I'm already pulling apart another section. So my color is never more than that. Back, forth, twirl it, and go down. And then you're constantly, it's like just a little dance like this. You're just like back, forth, back, forth. And I usually do take out my subsection just to create your sections to be smaller. If this is a bleaching tone, then I do the same sort of thing, but my section is usually never wider than my brushes. So I'm always at an angle. That way I'm always having this right amount of product. Because for the bleaching tone, this is my product, and if I'm having to reapply my product before I'm taking my next section, it's an extra step. So I just keep my sections smaller so they're even, and the same amount of product is going every time. So it's kind of at an angle like that. Does that make sense? So it's just this, and then you can flip, and there's your other side, because it's a smaller section. So you're down, and then as you flip up, that's pushing and it's holding your section. So you're never having to reapply in the middle, and you're using, does that make sense? Is that what anyone else does?
For your bleaching tone, are you then working kind of with the head shape, like from the bulk of the hair here, and then
I would just slide my section.
Gotcha.
Because you have to get all the hair.
Right.
I a lot of times leave my hairline out though till the very end.
Yeah.
Because I don't want breakage. And then at the end you go through, and you're gonna of course go through around the ear and double check everything. But you're parting I think one of the biggest things is don't put more color on the brush than that. And you're lifting, so this is holding it down, but you are subsectioning before you let go, and then you're getting more color on your brush at the same time. So it's all one move.
Right.
And you can go faster and faster.
So do you not release the tension until it's fully
So now my tension's up here.
Yeah.
Because I went over the bend.
and then
Yep, and so then I'm holding and I drop, and I'm pushing the color, and their head would be tipped. And I'm pushing the color, which is holding my hair up away from gravity.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of unconscious things that we do or do not do that I can't tell you whether or not I let go of the hair. I think I probably don't, but it makes sense to not let go of it.
Well, and not set your stuff down.
Totally.
So with foiling, there's so many times, and I think that's how brushes get also really messy, is because you forgot that you have color on your other side. And then you're just re-dipping or So, and then once I'm done with my all over colors, then I just take larger panels at an angle, so that also allows me to check. And then I'm doing a quick balayage down like that. And that's what's just gonna blend over whatever they have before, just so that you don't see any lines. And it's just like that. It's really not anything precise. And it just blends it out so people don't ever have that line. Even if they have foils, I still will do this. So kind of like with foils, same thing. So I hate a messy brush. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. So a lot of times if I'm using bleach especially, I don't even put my brush in my bowl. It stays on the side.
I said I've been better at that at other times than
Yeah.
sometimes and other times.
Well, and so with the brush that Jordan uses, so same thing. So these are my favorite, whichever size, because they are softer, and it's because I'm an aggressive color. Because I work fast, so sometimes I don't realize those can be a little pokey, and so sometimes then people are like, no, I don't think it hurts. But the same thing. This is completely feathered. This is so that never is a strong line. And doing the same thing. So you put your color on. So if when you're doing a foil, I put my color on and I do the same thing. Just kind of break it down. I think that also pulls your color tight, or your hair tight on it. I don't really know. I mean, with foils, it's pretty much exactly what she was doing.
What about foils with a base color? Or are you gonna go for that?
Okay, so a lot here. I'll just put a bunch of color. Let me put some conditioner up here so I can show you. So this thing is really weird. This is why I like people not, even if it is a Kisi. Okay. So one of the things that I do, I guess I'm just gonna do this so you guys can see. Move your nose slightly. So when I do a base color and then I'm like back here or wherever I'm gonna start, I'm gonna do my best not to move the hair as much. So I will go back and flip this up because that's how the color, we finished down here, okay? So now we're gonna go in and we're gonna pull this out. And this is, I don't weave it, I don't like pull, I don't do a subsection and then weave. To me, that's an extra step. So when I pull the hair down, that's my section. And I'm just gonna weave through or do a really fine slice. And then this is my tension to lock it in. So I don't use my comb to my tail. I just push that in and then I'm gonna put the color, apply it down, usually not on your ends. And then I like to use the base color that I've used and push that in. And then I typically wipe my comb like this, or wipe my brush, and then set it out. And move it. And I don't always lock these either because they're in color, they're not moving unless they need to be moved. And then at the end, I'll push them all at the same time. But it's in her face, so I'm not gonna leave this one. But even if you do. So same thing, so then I'm gonna go to the next one. We're gonna pull this down. This is pushing the hair back out of the way.
So say you're doing it with bleach, like you're foiling with bleach.
Yeah. So then I lift this up and I would set this down and this pinches it on. So I lift my section and literally it's already there, but this, I'll hold this and that sets it down. So that's like locked up there. And then this is bleach, so I'm gonna set it just below and do a little push.
So you do put your bleach into your color.
Yeah, but not, I set it there first and then and then I go back and I'll do this. Because that pulls the hair into it all the way and it feathers that all over color back into the bleach.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna wipe my brush. And then flip that up.
Do you
If you're leaving your ends out, same thing. Fold your ends up first, hide those, and then fold it up. And then I go right up there and then just slide it over. So that's the lock with that. When you already have an all over color, just doing that has locked that. It's not moving.
Yeah.
I mean, she can go dancing if she wants.
Do you have any like inconsistencies in the like end result of the color from smudging the bleach into the color and then like the ends lifting? That's always just my only fear.
You mean like when you put the bleach up into this color?
Yeah, like where there's
Well, that gives it that natural, that gives it that meltiness.
Gotcha.
So part of what I think, something I've learned over the past, so you can see how small the section is too. I mean, it's really soft and small. But so when you're taking your bleach, you know, you start here, right at the cup, right at where your natural, where your all over color was, and then you're just going to push that in. So you're not really pushing the bleach into that, you're pushing the all over color into the
Down
bleach.
into bleach.
But even if you are getting it a little into it like that, you know, you're really, if you see the brush goes, you at an angle like 45 degrees and you're gently pushing it flat. So you're not doing this, you're just really lightly pushing it up there, just like scooching it. And that is what's not moving the all over color all over the place and it doesn't get messy, but because you put most of it off, so you're just using a little residual color to do that. And then you can pull it, the hairs back in to the cup, the bleach.
To make it tight.
And that is what, you want that smudgy. You want like
Right.
part of it to go up, part of it to go down, because that's what's gonna give you that kind of that blended smudgy look. So you
Yeah.
don't have a foil line coming out of a color.
Right.
But you have that like, almost that balayage look. How we don't have quite that, here's your starting point.
Like a
Like what
transition
balayage
zone.
does, yeah, so it melts it through. And by pulling it through like that, that melts that through. Because really it's the ends you want bright. You want to see dimension, but you don't need it up tight to the scalp.
Right.
So I used to foil first and then put color in between, and it would be a mess.
Yeah.
And it would take so long. And then on top of it, then you would have a line where like that bleach was like exact at their
Right,
scalp.
right.
And then you'd have like a level 5 gray touch up, but then they want highlights and all that. And then it's just too much. And so by doing it this way, you're getting that soft transition and without having to put like a root sponge after.
Different steps, yeah.
Yeah. So another thing is like once you have this color and you've done your little section, and you're gonna just, you don't have to weave, you can just, baby fine slice like this again. And you put this in. If you feel you need like a little more of your base color, you can push your base color down like this and then wipe the brush, or you'll grab your other brush, but then grab your bleach and you can do your bleach just down here. So if you don't want all of them to go all the way up, or you want more of a balayage look, but a lot of times, you count as balayage over color and you won't see enough of it to air balayage it. So just when you put your foil in, push that base color down just a little further, and then you can take your bleach and just do your ends like this. And then I would just put a foil like this. And then you're gonna get that softer transition with the balayage, and you can do like every other like that, or every 3, where they're just wanting some broken up here, but they still wanna see the ends. I would just do that sort of thing. But, yeah, I'm sure total blank on something I was gonna say. I was gonna say something, I don't know, I just screwed up. So, yeah. Yeah. Jordan really went over a lot of what it was going over, and without having Casey here, it's just like a lot of like, there's not really that much to go over.
Great.
So, yeah, I just was kind of going over like keeping your brush in your hand, keeping your, thinking about like, as you're putting just being aware of like where your motions are. So you're not doing the same, so you're not setting something down and then you're combing through and then you're weaving up and then you're pulling out. Like you don't have to do all that. Just try and get things, as much as you can do in one step is really about being more efficient. And thinking about your timing. Like if you're sitting your comb down and then like talking, your client, and you're like, oh yeah, da 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 da, and then you're dipping your brush, and then you're like, and then like, oh, blah, 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 blah. It's like that bleach is just like, you could have put 3 foils in, and your bleach is just dying, and your color is dying, and you're just not gonna get an even result. And your client's here for an hour more than they need to be here. And for me, I don't like sitting here very long. I'm very impatient, and I think our clients also don't want to sit here for 3 hours when they could sit here for 2. And so I think just challenging yourself to try and be just a little faster, skipping one of your extra steps, or just being aware that you have extra steps, that you're setting things down every time in between, or, like not grabbing something when you could grab it at the same time, and just doing things all at the same time, instead of all the extra steps. Just be aware, think about it a little bit more. You'll be surprised how much extra things you do, and you're like, oh, I didn't know I did that. Yeah. Any other questions about how to be faster?